broadly, you want to stick to.
Is that working? Okay. So tonight we've got a wonderful session for everybody, and we're going to actually put the prints up on this board. So for you to see what's happening, it would be good if you came forward a bit so that you've got a good view of this. You guys on this side might like to go over there. Anyway, that's what's happening tonight. So good evening, everyone. I'm Jo Curtis, a member of our club. And I just want to welcome you all here tonight. Any guests? Any people who've never been here before? Great, okay. So we know where the loos are and where the exits are. And please turn your phones off or on silent. So tonight's program, we have a print number 1, and from C grade, and we have a digital results for C grade as well. Both of them are the first sessions for that group this year. A couple of promotions before we go into that. CPS this evening finishes the Natural History Digital number 2. So if you haven't put one of those in and you have a natural history image that you'd like to submit, you must do that before 11:59 this evening. CPS again has an open digital, and that's number 4, and that's due at the end of this month on the 26th of April. So you might like to do them both at the same time. And the third thing, MDC this month, for those people who are new here, MDC stands for Monthly Digital Challenge. And this month, the word is shadows. So you're encouraged, and that's the rules, to just go out during that month and make an image of whatever the word or phrase is for the month. And so make it this month, and the word is shadows. And the other notice I've got tonight is that from next week on, we'll all have new name tags. And thankfully, I'll then have 2, which means I'll keep one in the... then I'll have one that I can actually wear. Remember. So these new name tags are coming to us next week, and they're going to be a flash yellow colour, and they're going to be a lifetime name tag. So you won't get a renewal every year. So make sure you keep that under lock and key so you know exactly where it is. 40. There's always going to be a curveball. There'll be some curveball one, yes, I'm sure. What are you going to change your name to, John? Well, we'll give this a go and we'll see if it works. So that's next week. You can pick up a new name tag when you come along. So tonight's session, we've got the new and C grade digital and print, as I mentioned. And Nicola, are you going to come up and introduce the judge? Yes. All right, you'll see me later as we close up.
We'd like to really thank Ian for coming forward and judging this for us. We asked Ian to judge our C grade competition specifically because for C graders it's quite overwhelming to put your image in for the first time, and it's quite scary. And so we wanted to choose a judge that the critiques, hopefully, hope I'm not putting you in it, Ian, is going to be gentle and kind. And what we're hoping for is to encourage you to keep doing this because it helps us all learn and helps us all grow. So I'm sure he'll go over all that. Ian's obviously the president of the club and a very well-versed photographer with lots and lots of letters behind his name. I don't have something to read about, so I'll let him introduce himself. Thanks so much.
Hello? Yep. Oh, I'm away. Right. Yeah. Like I said, like Nicola said, I'm going to be the grumpy judge tonight, so that's cool. I'm going to start this with a little bit of a dissertation or my thoughts on judging. The context I'm doing that is not as a CPS context, but I've got some PSNZ roles associated with judging as well. So I'm going to kind of think about it in a broader context, but a fair bit of it's going to be my opinion. We say my opinion a lot when it comes to judging, and that's the intent of that is to make clear that judging is opinion, and there's just one opinion, and there could be lots around. So first of all, a question that is asked a lot, and that's why compete? I've always said, and I've said it a lot, I find this whole thing that photographers do where we compete against each other a little bizarre. Effectively what we're talking about is competitive art, and for me they just don't go together really well, but photographers seem to do it rather more than everybody else. I'm not sure that there's ever been a watercolour painting competition where people critique each other and talk about brush strokes and all that sort of stuff. They probably do that sort of thing, but they don't compete to the same level that photographers do. But anyway, we do that, and I kind of go, well, why do we want to be involved in that? And that's a good thing to be thinking about it as a C grader. Why do you want to get involved in this thing and put your picture up there and get it on the thing and have some smart aleck stand up like I'm doing tonight and make critical comments? And one of the reasons, and the primary reason I think, is that because we're looking for an audience. We make images ourselves in order to get it out there to go and show and tell people. Photographic organisations like this are a pretty well-learned audience. So you're going to get a judge who knows a bit and has looked at a few photographs, and he's going to be, he, she, or is going to be in a position to make sort of comments that are valid and relative to you. So first one is audience. You're looking for a constructive audience. We say that we do it to grow as photographers. Well, what does that mean? First of all, I think it's about confidence, and one of the big pluses for this, and the reason for this C grade competition is to grow people's confidence and say putting images up in front of people is not that horrendous, and it's something that we want to do as photographers. There's no, you can make them and stick them in your hard drive if you want to, but really you're trying to show people something, so this is an opportunity to do that. And it's something that helps you to start recognising your own vision. What do I mean by that? We all have a viewpoint on the world which is influenced by everything we've done for the last however many years you've been around, and that is your vision of the scene that was you had in front of you. you'll all get to experience at some point on a photography trip. There'll be 5 or 6 people standing there looking at exactly the same thing, and you'll get a huge range of pictures that come out from that. And that, whether you like it or not, that difference and that variation recognises the fact that you have a vision. So I really like to see that this competition validates that. By putting the work forward, validates that. And of course, the most exciting part is that we get to win prizes and cups, and at the end of the year you get a big silver thing that you'll have to clean the year after. So that's really what we're aiming for. So a little bit about judging. What can you reasonably expect? And this is the sort of stuff that we're drumming into people in the judging courses that are being run, and if you get an opportunity to go on one of those, I'd highly recommend it. But what we're looking for a judge to produce is not to be biased, not to bring your own biases to the table. So I would hope that we'll never hear, I don't particularly like landscapes, or this blurry stuff's a bit weird, I don't understand it. You need to, as a judge, be prepared to look past your own biases. You need to create a reasoned comment and be constructive when you talk to things. So you can reasonably expect me to come up with a reasoned, constructive comment, and if I don't, feel free to come and harass me afterwards. But you need to be truthful as a judge. There's not a lot of point in not telling the truth. People put the work forward to hear what you actually think. So the process, how does the process work? So I got this big box of prints, and I got an emailed file to go to the website with a list of 38 images. What's the process? The process is kind of threefold. You look at the images and you flick through them one at a time and just get a feel for it, for where they stand. And you actually compare images in your own head. You try and fit up, where does this set of images fit? Because the fact is, this is a competition. You're actually being compared with the other images there. I'm not tonight comparing your images with images that may have been in a competition 2 weeks ago in PR1 or PR2. I'm comparing your images with the other images in the set. And then I arrange them into scores and numbers and things like that. And then the feedback comes from there. The feedback. One of the things that's significant is that nice, I'm not going to say nice, because nice doesn't help. You've got to say something that's constructive, and quite often that will be descriptive. If I tell you what I see, and you go, but that wasn't what I was trying to show you, then you've learned something already. So I have to try and figure out a little bit about what it was that you were trying to tell me. And I'm going to talk about that during the presentation, but one of the things you do have to help point me in the right direction is a title, so think about your titling. So what's the aim of C-grade competitions? First of all, let's compare with what most other clubs do, because we're a bit different. We have main competitions where everybody's entered and there's no differentiation between the grades. You know, a judge is asked to compare all the images just on their own merit. That's typically not what most clubs do. Most clubs chop up all their other competitions into grades, and so everything's judged on an A, B or C or whatever it is, graded system. So we're a little different. So this set of images is this place, these C-grade competitions are where we provide a bit of extra for C-graders. It's intended to be a bit less intense, and it's intended to allow you to put your images forward, gain some experience and hear some comments. I personally would have liked at the start of this to give no grades at all and just talk about the images. We don't though, so we use this commended and highly commended thing, which is a bit different, and it's intended to be different so that it looks different and feels different, because your images are not going to be competing in the overall system. So what I've done in the end is I've said, if I've given it a highly commended, I'm effectively saying this image would probably get an acceptance in a regular competition. I think it's good enough that would probably get an acceptance. If I've given it a commended, it might get an acceptance. And if it give it a no award, I think it's less likely to get an acceptance in a regular competition. So take that on board, but the rest of it is just about your images on a one-by-one basis. Introductor Nova. Let's get on with the show. And the problem, I've got a bit of a problem that the order that I do it is different to the way the website does it. So I might get tumbled, but let's get started. I think the first image should be Golden Sunset. It is, it's a good start. What I loved here is the colours. The gold with a little touch of blue really works well. And I'm getting the wind in the trees is significant, but other than that, the link between the two is lacking. It's really about a big dominant golden sunset in the background, and the link between the two and the structure to allow me to flow through the image hasn't jumped out at me. You've called the image Golden Sunset, and that's what it is. But the trees, I think, are for me, a really interesting part of it, and that doesn't really sit together as well as it potentially could. But on the other hand, great colour, great colours if you got that gold and blue set together and works really well. But this one I don't think will be accepted, so it got a no award tonight. Traction engine is the next one. Black and white's good. Love the shutter speed because there's just a hint of movement in those wheels. If you look at the wheels, you can see that they are rotating. So that's the positives. I like the black and white conversion. You've done a good job technically of it. It's nice and sharp. Shutter speed's bang on. The downsides is it's not a particularly exciting point of view. This is somebody who's stood beside the road. The image is made from head height as the traction engine has moved past. To take it up a step, to make it more interesting and more engaging and to get everybody, we want to get a sense of how huge that is. So I think if you crouched down and looked up at it, you would have got that sort of bigger explosive sort of thing. The other advantage of that is it would have taken up that messy background and we would have been looking up against the sky. So that's something to think about next time you're in this situation. Try to change the point of view to step it up and make it more interesting. The next one is ready to go. This is lovely technically. I like this, the sepia-y colours. It's nice and sharp. It's a nice high contrast print, which looks interesting. Bugger, I did say nice. I said I wasn't going to say nice. It's a good high contrast print that works really well. Where I'm kind of lost, and it's what happens here is there are elements within a picture frame that draw the eye more strongly than others. A human shape or a recognisable shape is one, and writing is another one. Now we've got this big D that doesn't make any sense. So I'm drawn to the D and I'm blocked at the front by this big concrete thing. So there's two things, one's pulling me past and one's stopping me getting at it, whereas I think the actual picture, the actual interesting thing is that cool car in the middle. And that's what you're drawn at. Your title is ready to go, so I kind of think that you're waiting for the car to come out, which I do get, but really I think the interesting thing is the car. You could make more about the car, and you need to be aware of things like the D and the blocking thing at the front. In the arms of Morpheus, yep. So Morpheus is all about, yep, the sea lion is asleep. That's the crux of it. And yes, we can see that the sea lion's asleep. The downside is, from a technical point of view, he's not as sharp as perhaps he could be, and I think your focal point is a little bit off, or the shutter speed's a bit slow, one or the other. It looks to me like the clutter in the background is slightly sharper than the sea lion, so the focus is grabbed onto that. But on the other hand, if you are looking at this picture and going, we need an easy entry to it, and we're going to stop at the first thing, which is the sleepy sea lion, that sort of thing has worked. But look at all the stuff in the foreground that still stops you. One of the things we talk about and we need to work on from a post-production point of view is it's going to be really easy to clone those things out. And if you make that foreground really simple, there's a stop and there's clutter behind, that would work fine if it was simple, but it isn't. It's cluttered everywhere. The background stops us looking at the sleepy sea line, and the sea line needs to be crisp and sharp and what it's all about. The next one is overcast, patiently wait landscape of Brighton. I suspect you mean painterly landscape of New Brighton. Yep, it is. We're on the hill. We're looking down the water line, and it's an overcast, kind of a miserable day. We need something to punch something from somewhere to draw us into to looking at New Brighton. A third of the picture is the hill, the the foreground hill, and the most speckled, contrasty bits are the houses about a third of the way up on the left-hand side. So when I start my view from the bottom, I get to those houses and I struggle to look past at the painterly light on the water. If you want that to be about the picture, get yourself in a, you could probably chop the bottom third off relatively easily, or get yourself in a position where the light is not forming on those, and you can do that with Photoshop or Lightroom or something afterwards, darken them down and draw my eyes through to New Brighton, which is what you wanted to show me. So either in post-production or with good lighting, you need to emphasise the place you want me to look, which I think is New Brighton, but in this picture I stop at the houses. I'm going to go now to Well Hello. This is technically really, really good. Nice sharp picture of this. I think it's an alpaca, and the alpaca's kind of looking away, and it's sharp, it's crisp, but it's kind of almost too tight. It's all about just the head, and the head is looking the other way. In terms of distracting things, the top right corner with that bright blue patch allows me to look past and disappear out of the top of the frame. So a couple of steps to the left to make those trees all the way in the background, and then if the alpaca was looking at me as the viewer and you the photographer, I think that would be a more engaging way to present this. The next one is Paul Byrne light. Good concept. It's a nice, did it again, stop saying nice here. The light here is dramatic. That's what you wanted to show me, but all I've got is this massive goldenness, and right bang smack in the middle is a cottage. So what is it that you really want me to look at? I think the picture is hidden within that frame. I think the picture is the rocky outcrop and the house. I think the huts are good. I think the reflection in front of the rocky outcrop is interesting and good. I think the rocky outcrop to the left-hand side of the frame is interesting and good. But which one do you want me to look at? I think you need to choose one and simplify it. There's a system, I think, that really is worth thinking about when it comes to making these sort of photographs. Keep taking things away until when you take something away, it makes the image weaker. I think you can take lots and lots away and the image gets stronger in this case. Something that's worth doing, and this was a Mike Langford thing that Mike talked about on a workshop we did years ago. He said, when you're standing there, say to yourself, what's the title of this picture? And if the title is Paul Byrne light, which is what you've called it, where is the light? The light right in the middle is that golden shadowy reflected bit on the water. So make the picture about that. With that title in the back of your mind, zoom in and take away anything that isn't what your title is while you're standing there and making the picture, or while you're in post-processing afterwards, and just keep simplifying until you've nailed just the bit that you're talking about. In John Suckling's terms, make the main thing the main thing. Okay, next one. Grey weather. It is a grey, gloomy, murky looking day. Same deal. What is this picture about? The picture's about the ship. It's the sharp, blocky, contrasty bit at the front, and that's where my eye stops. To make this picture really, really good and about the picture, I think you should have got your phone out and dialed 0800 Navy and say, can you please take the Endeavour and just go out to the headland, and so that the ship draws my eye into the murky weather. If you'd done that, you would have nailed it. But with the Endeavour sitting there by itself, being the main part of your picture, being the sharpest, being the clearest, being the thing, all the rest of the murky weather at the top, which is what you were talking about, has not progressed to tell me that story. I'm finished. There's a great sense of accomplishment here. It's a part of the story. She's achieved something, and here it is. And I'm sure the lady who's finished this thing is really happy about it. And I think this image would sit well in a series of 3 or 4 that told the same story. But I actually think a more interesting picture to say I'm finished might be a close-up of her hand putting the last piece into that jigsaw puzzle. Or it might be something that's more abstract, tell us about the jigsaw puzzle. Or it might be just her face and everything out of focus. You can tell that she's finished. There's a number of things you can do, and you've shown me them all. And it's less compelling when you show me them all. So pick one thing that tells the story of finishing a jigsaw puzzle, and then build up from there. This could be the introductory one, showing you everything, and then, hone in on the main thing that tells that story. Stop for a shop. This is another example of the things that attract our eye when we look at a picture, and the things that have priority. And one of the things that we have priority is the human form. So you want this to be about this interesting shop, and I get it, it's an interesting looking shop, but showing me a bloke in leggings with red and orange and white and contrasty is going to make me look straight in at the weird guy in the leggings and the contrasty stuff in the shop. I'm not interested in the shop. My eye can't look at the shop. I can just look at this mammal bloke in the shop. Okay? So, yes, you could make it about him, but make it about him only. Make another one about the shop only, or make it about him interacting with the shop more than he is at the moment. He's kind of sneaking around the corner here at the moment. He's not a dominant and a vibrant part of it, but he is the key. He is the eye catch element because he's a human shape. Gannet in flight. There's a technical issue here. It's a lovely out of focus background. You've got that picture of that gannet right in the right place. There are out of focus gannet in the background and the gannets in flight, but you can see from there that it's over sharpened to beggary. Those little black, when you take that sharpen tool and you put it all the way across the top, what you do is you increase the contrast between every line, and the lines along that front of wing, there's halos around the whole thing. And that's software created. It's taking it too far. It's what over sharpening is, and if you look at the picture closer on a monitor, it just looks wrong. You can see around the top of that gannet's head where it's white, there's a black line, and everywhere there's a white bit, there's a black. Everywhere there's a black bit, there's a white line around it, and that's a function of taking the sharpening just a bit far. Perhaps the gannet wasn't sharp in your picture, sometimes you just got to let it go at that and say, bugger, what did I learn? How do I make that sharper? Go and have a look at my shutter speed, see if it was fast enough. Or you go and you get your post-production software and you go the other way and you make it, take the blurriness and the not sharpness all the way and do something creative with it. But as a kind of natural representation of the bird, your technique has taken it away from that natural representation. So technical issue with that one. Right, see if I can get the next ones in order. Should be. No, that's not what I expected. What was that called again? Persistence? Oh, it is called. Yes, I've found it. What happens is you go and judge these and you look on these things and you put them in numbers and then you say arrange the thing in order, and that order then turns up differently on the projector. So I've just worked out tonight the logic behind it, so next time I'll be okay, but this time I'm all over the show. But anyway, this is persistence. I like the black and white conversion here. I like the leading lines that pull me into the picture. But what happens is I start at the bottom, I come in that picture, I come in the wave, and I go out to the mountain in the distance, and then I see the clouds above it, and then I just disappear out the top. I think I need a visual cue to bring me back down into the guts of where your picture is, which is in this interesting shape in the form in the front. So the perfect solution would be a surfer or something there, but a difference in the wave, a pattern somewhere, a bird, something, a visual key in there to bring me back down there. So this is a construction that I think would help to bring you back onto that. I think the image works really well. It's just I just flow through it and disappear at the top. A visual key to bring me back would add a huge amount to that. The next one is small traction engine. Again, this is still essentially the same perspective, and you're taking the picture from the same perspective as this guy, but looking down on the traction engine, that gives us a hint that it's small. So the perspective is kind of appropriate here, and I enjoyed having that bloke in the background with his cell phone because he gives us a sense of scale in this little thing. It's nice and sharp, there's lots of detail, and we do get a sense of what's happening with the traction engine. However, it's an open competition. You can, and I say you must, when it comes to post-processing, simplify things and make this work. The little flag with the bloke in the background, I can look straight past my man and I can see this guy in the background. Clone him out. You know, if you need to get somebody to show you how to do that technique, do that. There's plenty of people who will show you how to do that, but that needs to go. That red thing, which is another carriage, I think, the red and the blue on the guys' jerseys are strong visual contrast to themselves. They pull me to the edge of that frame. It's cluttered and it needs to go. And on the right-hand side, I'd even clone out that post and some little bright bits that all that sort of stuff can all go, and the picture would work so much better for little things. I think it's a truthful representation because I believe when you stood there, you didn't see that guy in the background. Your camera did, but you didn't. So you're going to then, by cloning that stuff out, you're not doing anything wrong, you're presenting what you saw. But that little bit of technical cleanup would make a huge difference. Lake Heron. I really enjoyed the depth in this, the colour, the form, all that sort of stuff. The bit I got caught up on visually is exactly the thing that you're going to get caught up physically there, is that fence. It's a cluttered, interesting, grabby fence, and it takes up with its associated bit of water, a quarter of the frame. So it's a big, strong part of that picture, and it doesn't match the serene, relaxed, whatever sense that you're portraying me in the background. So I've got this big contrast of serene, relaxed, lovely, flowing, blah, 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 landscape with this messy, crunchy fence in the front. I like the leading line, but I just think I'd like also to see that weight that it has reduced. You could still have it as part of the picture as that sort of counterplay thing. What it requires you is to take 4 or 5 steps further into the water. I hope your gumboots are big enough, and get just the top corner of that fence where it doesn't have an entry bit. It's simpler. It's got that little, about where the little bit of snow is and the wee wire that comes across to the other bit. That would be enough to set the scene, to bring it in, to provide a contrast that doesn't win like it wins here on this one. So I really like where you're going with this little bit of what is the main thing, and let's photograph the main thing, make the title there, and that'll work. So the title is about the lake, not the fence. Preen me, please. This is super crisp, nice dark background. They're lovely looking birds. Again, it's back to what can we take off this and make it better. And I reckon the whole thing's a bit out of balance at the moment. We've got the strong weight of the preening bird on the right-hand side and the one in the middle who's getting the preening done. And then we've got this green thing down the bottom, and there's just a big weight. I would love to see this cropped pretty much down the line. I'll try not to trip over everything. I'd love to see it cropped down about here. This all dark and gone, and this cropped here, and then I think the balance would sit better, and I wouldn't feel like I'm tumbling over to the right-hand side, which is what I feel with this at the moment, because I think it's really well executed. So go and try that, put that crop in and see what you think, and I think it could well move up the grades if you put it in somewhere else. Right, where am I up to? Sunrise over the Hawkton Valley. Again, really good. It's the takeaway technique that I think we have here. We're standing there looking at the Hawkton Range, and you know, somebody's made the title. It's about sun and it's about patterns and it's about the Hawktons. But there's lots of repeated patterns here. There's a picture down in that bottom corner which is really simple, just 3 lines and stops. There's a picture up the top with if you come down to that peak, there's sort of a triangular form there with a dark background. There's lots of things within this picture. Try to take away the bits that don't add to it and see if the picture settles and feels more comfortable. I looked at this and I'm just a bit overwhelmed. There's a bit much. So sometimes less is more. Often less is more. Where am I up to? Yeah, this is peekaboo. Yeah, a title, peekaboo, doesn't help. Like I said before, I think the title, think of a title that gets me thinking about what you're trying to show me. I think you're trying to show me the golden sunlight on these little shafts of grass. Something like about that, golden sunlight. Peekaboo does say that the things are peaking up, but it says it in a kind of more light-hearted way than actually constructively helps. What did I say about that? I enjoyed the warm sunlight background, and I'm just saying more simple, please. I actually think just a little bit of that scene is a more concise form of that would tell the story better. What am I talking about? I'm talking about if we cropped straight up here and had a vertical that had a rock that's clearly out of focus and some simple little bits that aren't. We've got sort of 3 levels of rock here, and the form Simplify, simplify, simplify will make a difference. And always do a bit of an edge patrol before you put something in. Right up in the top in the middle is a little flick of grass that's snuck into your frame, and get rid of that. Erie, no, that's not that one. Oh yeah, Erie, New Brighton. I like this interesting viewpoint of a known scene. So somebody's got out there with a little bit of ICM and you've got a reasonably fast shutter speed, so it's recognisable enough yet. The whole thing kind of hasn't disappeared completely. You've held the highlights just, but they're held, that works. What else did I say? Yeah, there's two things. The horizon was, yeah, it actually looks better on this. On my computer, it looked slightly distorted to the point where I went into Lightroom and had to see if I could actually flatten the lines. But I think it's just sitting on that background that's moving slightly. So that actually, I'll withdraw my comment about that. But what I look at is a third of the picture is that blue sky at the top, and that doesn't need that much. I'm kind of lost in it. I would actually like to see the sky cropped below that oblique cloud bit at the bottom, so that we end up with line, 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 and they're all about the same. So that then just works together. When you put a graphic image like this together, think about, you know, aligning the graphic pieces of your picture. Next one is keeping out of the salt while surfing. Good energy. The square crop works really well. We're back to the same deal with the over sharpening. The face looks a little unnatural because you've tried to over sharpen to bring back something you probably didn't have quite fast enough shutter speed. If you look at his hair, the back part of his hair where the hair goes into the wave, there's a distinct white line along that, and all the water on his face looks a little unnatural because of the sharpening. So that's a bit of a pity, because it is a nice, I like the crop and I like the energy in his face and the energy in the image. Technically let down. The next one is an idle nut gathers moss. And I looked at that and went, I'm not sure that it is idle. That's what a nut's supposed to do. Its job is to hold things together. So it is actually doing that, but that's just me being slightly obtuse about what the nut's doing. I actually enjoy the fact that you've put the subject bang smack in the middle here, so you know exactly what we're looking at. It's an interesting looking nut and bolt. The little bit of moss on the top is what you're referring to works. There's a little bit of timber at the bottom, and we can see some boats in the background. But that's the bit that I'd actually like to see more of. I'd like to see more abstract context. So I reckon if you took the picture twice as wide and a little bit deeper, you're going to get more interesting shapes in the background that can create different kind of things. For me, I feel just too closely impacted on this nut and bolt, whereas I think the scene and the setting and the context of what it's doing and where it is would make a big difference. So I'm not sure if you've got more frame. It looks like it's been cropped a little bit, but go and have a think about opening up that crop and showing me a bit more. Diving on in. Again, good. This is a technically really good macros, hard thing to do. You've done it well. You've got a good focus. I like the explosiveness of the yellow colour, and I like the fact that the bee's wings are blue, so that blue and yellow kind of works together really well. And it is sharp. His head's disappeared in there doing his whole thing. But when you look, the thing that I'm put off by is pretty much the whole left-hand side of the frame from about the middle doesn't add anything to it. It just creates this big yellow. We know what it is. It's part of the sunflower, but I know that without seeing it. Go and try cropping it off, and I think you'll find that the eye more easily gets pulled to the B, which is really what it's about. And if anything, soften and lighten or lessen the contrast on the bit on the right as well, and just get us to nail and hold on that, on the B itself, and we'll be there. I think that's all right. Well, howdy, Pilgrim. Yep, I found it. Pretty much the same thing could be said about this one as the other alpaca picture. The lighting in the face is good in this one, in that it's opened right up. We can see into his face, and I love the grass sticking out of his mouth. That really adds to it. We do have the same problem in the background. So when you're doing this, you need to be thinking like the camera and thinking how you're going to see those disrupted patterns in the background, and just being aware of them. I know there's a myriad of things to be looking at, but those, the tree shapes and the blue is a distraction and pulls me past. If we were up a little bit higher, or you had solid trees in the background behind them, we would be held more concisely onto the alpaca's face. And the next one, I think, is pepper stalk study. I like the black and white conversion. It's simple. The shapes kind of mirror each other, so it's a repetitive thing, and that works really well. When this sort of construction things happen, you've got complete control over everything when you come to making this, and I'm not sure whether it's a still life sitting on something, or there's a background a couple of feet behind it or whatever, but it's clearly a put together thing. You have complete control over it. What we've got here is we've got three objects that are sort of sitting as one. I think you could grow this in interest if there were three objects that interacted with each other. If you brought one further forward and you had it could be the middle one, it could be sort of 6 inches further forward, and if you're focused on that, the others drifted out of focus and behind it. So when you have multiple subjects, and I'm going to talk about this in a couple of other pictures later on, sometimes multiple subjects you need to be able to choose one, or it helps to choose one, I'll put it that way. So I think the picture then would get some depth to it, and it would make it really clear to the viewer that yes, these are three pepper stalks, but this one is the one that I want you to really look hard at and infer something to the other one. So, well done. I think you could take this to another level with a bit of arranging and concentrating on one of these objects. I'm not entirely sure what we'll go to next. What was that called? Taking a break. There we go, taking a break. So this is the first of the commended ones. The tonality is really good. Great black and white image. I really like it. It's simple, and we've got these sort of repetitive shapes that counterbalance each other. We've got the bloke down the bottom left and the sort of statue who way one way, and we've got the rectangular form of the door and the rectangular form of whatever that is. Maybe it's where a poster sometimes goes. Those are the things that kind of add together. I would like, in the perfect world, to see all of his shadow. So think about that when you're standing there. If you're going, the picture is about the man sitting on the step, or if you make up a title, man in sculpture or whatever you call it, and then you look at the man and go, I actually like to see all of him, and the shadow is part of him. So take a step back, zoom out slightly. The other thing that's happened here is you are looking up slightly, and you can see the verticals are converging. So I'm sure that statue is directly above the door, and if you look at the door frame, it kind of tends to lean inwards a little bit. Those are the sort of things that can be simply fixed in Lightroom. So fix them when it comes to verticals. Whenever you're looking up, the fact of the matter is sometimes you do have to look up or have to look down, but fix the verticals whenever you do that. So this is a good picture, but I think you could tweak it a bit more and take it up a level. Okay. This was called lettuce, wasn't it? Oh, I can't find my comment on lettuce. Anyway, lettuce. I love to make it up. Interesting. I really enjoyed the abstract nature of this thing. And lettuce is the perfect title because it explained it if I thought about it. I'm looking at these lines going, what is that? What's this called? Lettuce. Ah, I know what it is. I'm looking down on lettuce. At that point, I don't care what I'm looking at. I'm now looking at the visual thing that's happening. And I super enjoyed the purple within the greens because those colours work really well. The only thing that I would suggest is that I'd be really careful on the edges. Whenever you get this kind of pattern, I think you could be more precise on the crops. That the lines aren't perfect. The guy who went along with his digger or planter or whatever it was didn't go in a perfectly straight line. You're never going to get that. But on the bottom where there's a little bit of edge coming in and not, crop it up just enough so that it's all green all the way across there. And at the top, exactly the same thing. I'd come down just a little bit. So edge patrol is really important because anything that's interacting with the edge draws my eye. So I saw that and drew my eye and went, I wish it was cropped a little bit in. But I thought this was a really cool picture and go for it. Well done. I thought I gave that a 4 actually. So what happened to the rest of the 3s? That'd be why I couldn't find it. What's next? Grebes on Lake Alexandrina. I really enjoyed this. Bang, smack in the middle. Nothing much else around it. It's a simple picture of the two birds interacting, and I actually kind of like the back bird is slightly out of focus, which gives me an implication of movement there. I enjoyed the little bit of blue on the water behind that creates some depth as it disappears away into out of focus. The only thing I would have loved to have seen is the reflection. We got a half of an awesome reflection. If the whole frame was a little bit further out and we had the bottom half of this awesome thing going on, for me that would take it a notch up. So this is kind of really well done. But I went, where's the reflection? Stepping into the light. This was actually she's stepping out of the light and into the dark, but who's going to be picky? Me, probably, so that's what I'm doing. I really enjoyed the black and white conversion here. I enjoyed the balance that you've created, the tonality and the flow. That subject bang in there kind of really helps. We still have the vertical. This is another example of the vertical issues. The posts on the pillars on the right seem to be leaning out and the pillars on the left leaning out as well. So what's happening is you're up looking down, so you've created that thing. So just get that little slider and perspective control in Lightroom and fix that. Relatively simple to fix before you enter this in a full PI competition. The other thought I had is that there's a bit of an escape route. If you take that light line from the bottom left and you sneak up, you can actually get out without actually being constrained and looking at the picture that you want me to do. So I would take that escape route out, straighten those verticals up and bring the whole zoom the whole thing in a little bit so that escape route's not there, and so we really are forced to concentrate on the person in there. And I actually think having her a little bit bigger in the frame might add to something as well. So go and try that, straighten those things up, try the slightly tighter crop and see what you think. But either way, you've made a great picture and I enjoyed it. Back to there. Aberystwyth Soul. I practiced that Aberystwyth to say it correctly. I'm guessing that's somewhere in Wales. And the picture is all about texture. Is it slate? Maybe it's slate, I don't know. And the grittiness, and it's a pattern picture. It's not actually, it doesn't necessarily need something else, and it works, and my eye wanders all around the place. I do wonder what it would look like if it had an eye grabbing something in there, a leaf or something, to provide a contrast. But the grittiness and the texture and the whole thing just works as a pattern image all by itself, so I enjoyed that as well. The stick in the dam, yep. I really like this kind of graphical representation of the form, but if you go to the stick in the dam principle of saying, here's my title, I think that the picture about the stick in the dam is across here and down here. So the stick in the dam is a big part of the picture, whereas the picture as it is at the moment is about a broader, more graphical kind of representation. Don't mind it either way, but all I'm saying is if you're talking about that stick in the dam thing, if that's what you really think is the main thing, make it so. The other thing that is really worth working on is it is a graphical image. Make the verticals bang on vertical. Even get a grid line on there and line everything up. And that little change, because there is a little change you could make to line the verticals up, will make the image pop significantly more. So, well done. Seeing double. Looks like a multi-exposure of an interesting subject to start off with that has become even more interesting. That kind of worked really well. I have absolutely no idea what it is, and the picture doesn't help me to understand what it is, and I actually don't care. It's just an interesting jumble of all sorts of stuff. The only thought I have is more room, please. It's right up against the edge of everything. And it's back to me, so I've said it a couple of times already, just step back a little bit. If you can keep it simple and give it greater context, we get an understanding of where it's at and the other stuff around it. So that's all I thought about with that one, so well done. And I'm just going to completely guess where we go from here. It's clearly the wax eyes. Wax eyes enjoying honey. Yeah, I'm not sure whether you've set this up and gone and put a blob of honey on the branch to get the wax eyes to come. If you have, that's really good. Well done. Here we have, I really enjoyed the fact that you have 3 similarly sized birds in the frame, but they vary in size. Like the one on the left is the main man. He's the closest to us. He's the biggest. He's doing the most thing, and they get smaller as they go further away. So the one right at the back, slightly in shadow, there's a relationship between them is what I'm getting at. That really works well in this case. You've got a vignette that holds the whole thing in around the outside of the frame, and it's not overly, it doesn't sort of jump out at us too much, but we do have this well executed technically picture and well constructed from a graphical point of view as well. So well done. That one got a highly commended. And this is the high key ball. Where's that? Yep, found it. Random writings on random pages, unfortunately, here. The high key bull, I really enjoyed the high key. This kind of does work, and it just takes the whole background and makes it irrelevant, makes it all go away. I'd take it a little further. I'd try and get the back part of the bull in high key, so just up the exposure on his rump a little bit and really just focus on his head, and perhaps you could increase the contrast on the face, so to darken the face, and so we just, that head and the horns is really the bit that grabs it, and the rest of it is high key. Definitely a flow throughout the whole thing, but I just think you could kind of lighten up the back half of the beastie and darken the front part of it, and it would just hold us in a little bit. So minor tweaks that I'm suggesting more than anything else. What you've seen and what you've done is really good. Lonely New Brighton. I like the fact that this is abstract but recognisable. So you've gone and done the vertical ICM thing, but we still recognise the shape. Part of it is that we've all seen the pier, so we kind of know that it's the pier. But even somebody who didn't know that it's a pier can tell that it is, something like that, and that works. It is. Again, on my monitor versus on this slightly brighter representation, I found that the figure on the left-hand side between the two parts of the pier, which is an important part of it, that sole figure gives you the sense of loneliness, is what you were getting at. That stands out. On the other representation, it was a bit darker. I wanted you to punch it up, and it's been punched up all by itself here. I would also consider taking a wee bit off the right-hand side, just to hold us on that left, where the left-hand side is the interesting part of it. So, again, lovely picture. Take the things I've suggested and go and have a play with them, see what you think, but then make your own decision about it. The picture's valid all by itself, and well done. From the north. This is a wonderful story. This is really cool. I super enjoyed this. If the aeroplane coming in, doesn't really matter whether it's from the north or not, but it is coming in. There's a passage of time, and then we get this barrier that we're kind of stuck behind. The point of view that you've taken here is exceptional. Kind of looking up. There's not very many people get to look at an aeroplane relatively low. You must be pretty close to landing. His gear's down, so he's nearly there. So it's a really good point of view. I love the contrast between the flowers and the wire, and for me, that little pointy part of the wire on the left-hand side sort of points up towards the aeroplane, and it's no coincidence that you've exactly separated. No part of the aeroplane touches the wire. So exceptionally well done. Really like this picture. Yeah. This is something about an eye, but I've got to find it on my random piece of paper. What the eye sees. This, for me, I got the sense of abstract but real. So the whole sort of picture is, by being much closer than we're kind of apt to see this, you've created an abstract. There's only one eye. We're used to seeing two of them, but we're just seeing one, and there's only a sliver of focus there. And then when you get drawn in, you start to see what's in it, and you're looking at the reflection in the person's eye, and you can actually see of some flax or a plant or something. It might be the photographer at the bottom of it. But in some respects, I went, okay, that green makes some sense when I'm looking at green flax. So that all kind of tied in and worked really well. I just love that sliver of focus, which is exactly in the right place. And we can see just some of the eyelashes in focus and a little bit of skin that's in focus, and the rest of it's dreamy and abstract and wonderful. Awesome picture. Early bird in the full moon. Colour and shape and stillness of the background worked really well. This simplicity I really enjoyed. that just kind of blue sky and not much else happening. The branches in the background are all fading out of focus. And then I kind of looked at it and went, well, I'm not going to say this is what I'd do, but I look at the bird and he's got a piece of bud or something in his mouth. Depends what your story is. Don't feel that you can't take that bud out of the bird's mouth. If you wanted this image to be about the bird singing, then I would get in there and clone that out completely, and it could be gone, and then your picture is clearly about the bird singing. If your picture's about the bird, eating or interacting with the stuff, then what you've done's fine. But all I'm just saying is you've got complete control over everything that's the picture, and if you wanted to take that out of that bird's mouth, go for your life. I think it simplifies it, so go and try it and see what you think and make your own decision. Great picture. And this one, elegy for the earth, for our earth. This is just gorgeous and it's technically wonderful. I just love those little starbursts of the lights on the chimneys. They're just fantastic. There's a little hint of the pylons. You can see the pylons, but they're not a big part of the picture. There's clearly a kind of flow of dominance of things in this picture. The thing that the photographer wants us to look at is those chimneys that are spouting whatever it is, whether it's steam or smoke or something that's being lit and drifting away in the background, and then the rest of it kind of ties up. We get to see a hint of the vegetation on the hills in front of us, and we get to see an even more subtle hint of the power pylons, but the whole thing's structured and put together really well. My only thought was that it looked like, on my computer, it's a bit hard to tell here, a 3x2 crop, and so there's quite a lot of black at the bottom. I wondered whether you had just left it in that 3x2 crop that it was in, because that's the way it was made. And I'm just suggesting that you don't feel constrained by what the camera crop was, and feel free to take some off the bottom and see if you have a think about it. Do that and try it. See if you like the balance better or worse. But that's not a criticism. That's just an observation that I want you to go and have a go at, because I thought this picture was fantastic and definitely highly commended. So I think that's the last one. No, it's not. That one is called The Storm Passes. As the storm passes. Okay. I found this crop really interesting. It works with the flow, because this is like a real thin crop. Again, it's a bit hard to see, but there is a line just underneath with the mountains against that black ground. So we've got this big, wide letterbox panorama form, and you enter on the left-hand side where the colour is bright, and then you kind of come across and you see the effect of where the light is forming, and it gets darker and more gloomy as you come further across. So that's kind of the storm is forming, and then we can see some windmill pylons sort of standing on the whole edge there, and it's again this is presenting quite a bit brighter than I saw it on my computer. It was definitely darker there was a significant flow of lightness from the light side to the dark side. The only observation I made here is that the pylons have again got that kind of leaning to the left kind of feel about them that I think you could straighten up with just a tweak on the Lightroom slider, and I think that would just crisping those sort of things up makes a world of difference. But it was a cool picture. Oh, no, I've got no idea whether there's any more or not, because my notes are all over the place. So well done to everybody. As I said, everybody in this last group were highly commended. I'm pretty sure you're going to get an acceptance just straight away. And if you're in the commended, couple of tweaks, and there's a good chance you'll get one anyway. So, shall we go straight on with the prints? Right, what I want to do with the prints is go old school on you. So we're going to use this thing. And there's a reason for that the prints look quite different to some of the PIs. Alan, are you going to be able to put them up sort of and have a comparison, or? While we're waiting, we can have a look at that one. That's going to work. There we go. Irwin Valley, Idaho, USA. It's a big print, and it's kind of well done, nicely presented, nice and tidily put together. And once again, well, two things. You'll be able to see that the colours are a bit different between the print and the projected, and the projected was a little bit darker again with my projection. So those are the two things. Presenting the two, that's one of these weird things. We're actually trying to judge the print here because it's a print competition, but we get presented with the digital, which is a conflicting thing. However, you can probably see them from here. Is there a problem in the sky just above those trees on the left? Can anybody see the spots? They're all over the place. It's kind of a real simple thing. It takes you 30 seconds to get rid of them. You've got to get rid of them. So dust spots were the problem with that one. I think the next one is this. Print. Again, confusing myself. Windswept poppy. The centre, this part of it here, is pin sharp. That kind of works really well, and I think I'm drawn into that. I enjoyed the fact that there was green all the way around the outside. It's kind of a colour vignetting, if you want to put it that way. So that's in there. But the problem is this piece here that stops me looking where I want to look, or you want to show me. You want to show me the centre of that flower, but then you've presented it with this big blob of red right in front of it that doesn't allow me to get in there and see it. So just have a think about what it is in the flower you're trying to show when you do this, and tighten up on exactly that little bit. Every calm sea and rock. It's really, you've got the slow shutter speed thing going on in the water. The rocks are sharp. The water is really the right amount of blurriness, and it gives this kind of ethereal looking thing that you're looking for. However, if you look at this with a squinty eyes, this bottom third is the bit that grabs you the most. As you come into the picture, this big mass of rocks doesn't really add to the picture. For me, this little tiddly rock right in the middle is the key to the whole thing. And if you're able to arrange the picture space so that I'm drawn in to look at that interesting tiddly bit right in the middle, for me it works a lot better. So I think a pretty solid crop across here would jump this up a long way, and when it comes to the design pictures of that one. Yep. Cook shop evening, I found it. I like the central layout of this, the subject. It's bang smack in the middle. It's pretty clear what you want me to look at it. You've given me enough space that I've been complaining about through the rest of the night to give some context, so that kind of works really well. And here we've got this interesting building right in the middle. Worth comparing the colours between the projected image and the picture again, quite significantly different. And if you look, so somebody's done some work here which has actually improved it. If you look at the front part of the cookhouse with the doors and the windows and all that sort of stuff, you've lightened it and increased the contrast in that. So the processing that's been done here is moving it in the right direction. The problem is, for me, that's the interesting part of it. I think that's the interesting part of it for you as well, but the sun is not on your side at the moment. It might have been an hour or so earlier when it was around 20 degrees to more to the front and you were shining on that front bit. When you want something to pop out and when you want something to be the centre of the story, it needs to be lit. And so you've chosen the unlit side of this building as your centre of interest. You've tried to bring it back a little bit in here, but it needs some light on it. I reckon if you went round to the left and you found an interesting window on the end of that same building, you could make a more dramatic picture about that one little piece of it than you have about the interesting part of it. So be aware of where the sun is when you're standing there. Oops. Tranquil evening. Yeah, this is a well-presented print. Good lighting with the punchy yellow, but this is exactly the same as I was talking about before. What's the picture? Is the picture held in those reflections of the rushes? Or what if the one you go across to the left on the left-hand side of the frame, those big, tall, golden yellow ones and really cool-looking reflections? Is it the relationship between the tree to the right of it or to that? Or is it this rock? Or what is it? There's lots of stuff you've presented here. Decide what it is that's grabbed your attention and hone in on, take away everything that's not part of your picture. And I think that'll improve this out of sight. Which way did that go? That way. Butterfly orchid plant. There it is. This is a well done print. I love the dark background, works really well. It's been well presented, sitting nicely in the frame, and it's worked well. But what we have here is the same deal as we had in some of the other pictures where you've got multiple things. We've got 6 flowers that you're showing me 6. Which one is the key? I think it would have been a stronger image if you'd come around to the left or turned the whole thing, whatever is the easiest way. So we then got 3 on one side and 3 we're seeing the back part of the flower versus the front part. There's still 6 there, but now the back 3 have become secondary to the front 3. And then you get a bit lower, so you've got just the bottom one, or you just hone in on just the middle one. Whatever it is, there needs to be a hierarchy, or it adds to the story and to the flow if there is a hierarchy. You've thrown 6 of them up there in front of me, and my eye goes all around the place trying to decide which one you wanted to show me. A couple of little things that are worth noting here as well on the print. When you're framing stuff, if you look carefully, there's an overlap there on the mat that is not evident on the projected image. So when you're framing these things, you really have to get that nailed down. Do an edge patrol like I talked about before on other little snippets of things around the edge. Here and here, the flowers have intercepted with the mat because you've got in a bit tight. I think you probably could have moved the print up and to the right a little bit and cleared both of those away from the edge by moving it 1/16 of an inch. And that doesn't seem very much, but it makes a difference. Yep, poppies. What did I say about poppies? I enjoyed the comparison between, and it is a strong comparison between the seed head in the background and the just about to open poppy in the foreground. You've got a vertical versus a horizontal. You've got a bunch of detailed and the little crispy hair things on it as well. There's a whole bunch of things, and the splash of red works really well. The print's working not too bad under these bright lights, but it's definitely dark in comparison and a bit flatter than the projected image. So I got the sense that this print could have could have done with being a bit brighter. So these problems Mike talked about last week, where people often talk about dark prints, I think this is what's happened in this case. You've possibly taken it along to the processing place, and your monitor's not as calibrated. If your monitor's set up too bright, your print will come out a little darker than it should do. So that's what I felt was happening here. In fact, the same with this one. Lost beauty, and you might even be able to see it from there. If you look at these purples here, and the purple up here, so that's almost white on the print, and down here it's brighter as well. And if you look underneath here, you can actually make out the details of the underside of the flower much more clearly on the projected. Coming back to the print, I love the colours. I love the central positioning. You've put that thing right in the middle to show me it, and there's enough space around it to give it context. The only issue with it is it's come out a bit darker and it's lost a bit of the oomph, which is there in the projected image. Deep love between mother and child seals in Kaikoura. Again, this is a really good example. If you look at the colours, you can see the colour difference between the print and the projected. I'm just looking at the print, and I kind of looked at the projected afterwards and went, oh, that's an interesting comparison. It's a sharp, it's got a simple background, and it's a lovely moment. So it's got everything that it needs to be a really cool picture. It just feels a bit flat in the print compared to the projected image because of the way the printing processes happen. So there's a technical thing, you just got to keep going at it and seeing if you're getting the same feel. That's I've thrown away so many pieces of paper. That's the advantage of having a printer, that you can do it and throw them away to make it punchier. So part of the process you need to learn to handle. But this is still a cool picture and I liked it a lot, but it wasn't as punchy as the projected. Which one's next? The door. Exit. Black and white print worked really well, so this was a highly commended. The previous ones were commended. It's a wonderful print. I love the subtle shadows in around the bottom of here and all of the door. The interest in that door and the grittiness on the door works really well. I did get a sense for me that the vignette is you could argue it's a bit overcooked, but that's a personal preference, but it is really a strong vignette. And I also wondered if the handle could have perhaps held a sort of a more significant part in looking at that door. That's something that it's an interesting looking handle, and the vignette is kind of darkened on the edge of that. That's the way that worked together, but you could have gone back and painted some brightness back over the door handle itself. I just felt that I wanted to be visually drawn towards the handle, but the presentation of the whole print was really good all by itself. Other comment, and again I suspect that this is one of the mats that Sebastian's cut, and it feels that it's just a little bit too big for the hole for the print. This is one of these things we just do need to get your match of the print. There's little white lines down the side and up the top. I don't think there's any way you're going to be able to fit it with that hole, but that's something we need to be aware of. And if that was going into a national competition, it would be gone for that probably. And the last one, reflections in Malta. So same comment about the mat that didn't quite fit the print, but I super enjoyed the colours. The whole thing explodes at me and it's really good, and I really enjoyed the fact that the top part of the boat is sharp and then we've got this reflection at the bottom that's just a wavy abstract of the same thing. The only suggestion I've got to make here is that little C. I talked about the fact that lettering draws your eye. There's a CA on the other side of it. If you brought that crop just in a little bit tighter and got rid of that CA, that would hone the focus in on the words, the projected. the actual title of the boat on the left-hand side just takes a wee bit of a distraction, and it's also right bang on an edge where it causes a higher amount of that sort of thing. But still a cool picture and still got a highly commended. I think that's it. Look.
The first commended for the print is Poppies by Adrian Gentleman. Oh yeah, and the next one is Lost Beauty by Adrian Gentleman. Well run in. Deep Love Between Mother and Child Seals and Kaikoura, Ming Ping. Not here. The Exit by John Ben. And the next one is Reflections in Malta by John Ben. Well done. Right. And now we'll do the PIs. Taking a break. Pip right. Oh, not going to give it to Nicole. Lettuce by Alistair Nicol. Oops, hang on. Yeah. That one. That's Greaves, isn't it? Greaves on the Lake Alexandrina by Ming Ping. Not here. Stepping into the Light by Pip Wright. Not here. Aberystwyth Soul, John Ben.
Is that how you pronounce it?
And I didn't even practice. The Stick in the Dam by Penelope McCall. Not here. Seeing Double, Denise Fuller.
Oh, that's cool.
Wax Eyes Enjoying Honey, Judy Kirk.
Did you put
High Kia Ball by Kelly Haybattle. Lonely New Brighton, Francesca Davies. From the North by, sorry I can't read it, Hee-Chun Kim. What the Eye Sees, Karen McConaughey. Oh, Early Bird and Full Moon, Ming Ping. Elegy for Our Earth, Hee-Chun Kim. And As the Storm Passes, Kelly Haybattle. And Ian, thank you so much. That's for you. Thank you for a wonderful job, and well done, everybody. And back to Joe.
Thank you. Well, what a great evening we've enjoyed. Thank you so much again, all of you, you three, for putting the time and effort in to assisting the C graders, especially to improve their work, seeing things that catch their eye maybe a little differently after you've spoken to them, Ian, and go back and experiment with what you've got there. And like Ian said, just see what happens with a different way of looking at your own work. So this session's been really valuable. I wrote a few notes to improve what I do as well by seeing what your suggestions on other people's work. So we can all get something very valuable from looking at other people's work and hearing the critiques that have been made. So just to wind up this evening, thank you again for the new members and the C grade session beforehand. Both Jane and Nicola, thank you for doing that. Opening tonight, Alistair, thank you. We have Gordon and Wayne and Andrew still there on sound and lighting. Alan on the projection, thank you very much. And John had supper out there for us earlier. That's a good way to do it, isn't it? Having a break in the middle like that. So we invite you to come along next week and drive carefully home. So good night.